Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. My name is Kseniya and I make videos for people who, like myself, are going through the family-based immigration process. I am not an immigration attorney. My videos are based on publicly available information, my personal experience, and experience of my subscribers. I just want my videos to give you guys the confidence to go through the immigration process completely on your own. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to properly calculate household size on the affidavit of support form, also known as form I-864. In the first half of this video, we're going to talk about the people that need to be included as part of your household size. And in the second half of this video, I will give specific scenarios and examples. So there have been some changes in the form instructions. It's not necessarily changes to who needs to be included as part of your household. However, the form instructions have changed the wording. Checking the form instructions again, I realized that since 2020, I believe, there have been a couple of sentences taken out of the form instructions that were particularly confusing. So who needs to be included as part of the sponsor's household? And remember that this doesn't only relate to the petitioner sponsor. In addition, they mean any sponsor filling out form I-864. So if you are a joint sponsor, you also need to be following the same instructions. Who must be counted? First of all, the sponsor themselves. Next, persons sponsored in the affidavit listed in part 3, and remember that this number will only be more than one if the intending immigrant has derivatives. If you are a U.S. citizen petitioner who is submitting separate petitions for each of your relatives, this number in the affidavit of support will most likely only be one. However, if you are petitioning for a relative who also has derivatives, such as unmarried children under the age of 21 or their spouses, then in this case, you will be including them as derivatives. And again, do not include anyone for whom you filed a separate petition, and I will talk about it later in the video when I give specific scenarios. And I would like to direct your attention to a video I made explaining the difference between a principal and a derivative applicant. And this video helps you figure out if you are a principal or derivative, and I will link it in the top right corner of this video right now. Next, the sponsor's spouse must be included in the household size if not already counted above under the intending immigrant. Again, if you are petitioning for your spouse will already be included under item number 1 as the intending immigrant. So if you have already counted them, you do not have to count them twice. They are still part of your household. However, they're part of your household as an intending immigrant, not your spouse. And if you are a joint sponsor, for example, and you have a spouse, then obviously you will be counting them here as well. Next, as part of your household, you also want to count any children except those who have reached the age of majority. So that would be 18 in the United States, and you do not claim them as dependents on your federal tax returns. Only count the children you have not yet listed above as intending immigrants. So if you're petitioning for your child and they are already counted under item number 1, you don't have to include them again under item number 4, which asks you to count any children you have. People ask me if they should be including any stepchildren that you have. The thing about counting in children as part of your household can be a little bit tricky, but in any case, if these children already reside with you, even if you haven't yet petitioned for them, but they already reside with you, and they are also underage, then in this case, you definitely need to be counting them as part of your household. However, if you will be potentially petitioning for children that are not part of your household, say your stepchildren who live overseas and they're not part of your household yet, you haven't been taking care of them, then you don't necessarily have to count them if you don't claim them on your taxes. Next, you want to count any other dependents that you have. So this implies any kind of dependents that you have listed on your tax returns. And these dependents only need to be counted if you claim them on your most recent year's tax returns. So if you have claimed somebody 2 years ago, but you haven't claimed them on your most recent year's tax returns, you don't need to count them. You need to count in your household anybody else who you as a sponsor are supporting right now through other I-864 forms. So in other words, if you have signed an affidavit of support prior for somebody and now they are a permanent resident, meaning now they have a green card, so you are financially obligated to support them still for the next 10 years or until they naturalize or until they pass away. So in this case, you still need to count them. The people that you need to count under this item must already be permanent residents and immigrated to the United States. So you will not be counting anybody for whom you are filing a separate affidavit of support and who hasn't yet become a green card holder and who hasn't yet immigrated to the United States. So for instance, if you are filing 2 affidavits for both of your parents, under here, you don't have to count your other parent, because even though you are filing an affidavit for them, your other parent hasn't yet become a green card holder, so you don't need to count them here, okay? Finally, you want to include any household members, such as parents, siblings, or adult children who will contribute their income to yours as a sponsor, also reside with you in the same principal residence. So these people will need to fill out Form I-864A. And again, I want to direct your attention to my I-864 playlist, where I describe exactly who can be counted as a household member, because a household member in immigration terms is a little bit different from what you may consider a household member. So in this case, any parents, siblings, or adult children residing with you will be considered your household members if they are contributing their income to help you sponsor an immigrant. But not all relatives can be household members. So for example, you can't count your uncles, aunts, grandparents. So now I want to give you guys some specific scenarios that will hopefully help you understand how the household size works. So very first common example is when we have a sponsor only petitioning for their spouse. When it comes to calculating the household size, you will put 1 under item 1, you will put 1 under item 2, and you will leave item number 3 blank. Item number 3 asks you to count your spouse if you are married. However, because you are petitioning for your spouse is already counted under item number 1 as the intending immigrant. And in this case, you do not count them twice. And in this case, your total household size should come out to 2. Example number 2. You are a U.S. citizen petitioning for your spouse and child. So in this case, you as the U.S. citizen sponsor will be filing 2 separate petitions for your child and your spouse. So in this case, each of them will have to receive a separate affidavit of support. So on your spouse's affidavit of support, this is what the household size calculation will look like. Under item number 1, you will put 1. Under item number 2, you will put 1. Under item number 3, you will put 0 because you have already counted your spouse under item number 1. And under item number 4, you will put 1 because you're counting your child. So if your child is already residing with you, in this case, you can count them here. However, as a parent, if you bear financial responsibility for this kid, regardless of where they live, you should still be counting them. The second affidavit will be for your child, and this is what their household size calculation will look like. Again, a 1 under item number 1, 1 under item number 2, which is you're counting yourself, 1 under item number 3, because you are counting your spouse. However, under item number 4, you will leave it blank or put a 0 because you have already counted your child under item number 1, which is counting the intending immigrant. You do not have to count your child twice. So in this case, each of the affidavits should have a total household size of 3. Example number 3. Let's talk about a U.S. citizen petitioner sponsoring 2 parents at the same time. And our sponsor is actually married and also has 1 child. So in this case, again, you will be filing separate affidavits for each of your parents. So their household size calculations will look identical, with one exception, that their names and personal information will be different in the actual affidavit of support, such as in part 2, for example. However, this is what each of their affidavits will look like. 1 under item number 1, because you are sponsoring 1 immigrant on this particular affidavit. 1 under item 2, which is you yourself. 1 under item 3, because you say as a sponsor are married. And 1 under item number 4, because you as a sponsor have a child as well. However, here you will not be counting your second parent anywhere else because you're filing a separate affidavit for them. And like I mentioned earlier, you will not be counting your other parent under item number 6 because they are not yet a permanent resident. Example number 4. We have a U.S. citizen sponsor sponsoring petitioning for a spouse. And previously, the sponsor have sponsored their parent who now has a green card. And to make this example more simple, we're going to just say that there's no children. So this is what their household size calculation will look like. 1 under item 1, 1 under item 2, 0 under item 3 because you are sponsoring your spouse and your spouse is already included under item 1. 0 under item 4, for example, because you have no children. 0 under item 5 because you don't have any other dependents. However, you will put 1 under item 6 because you actually petitioned for your parent before and your parent is now a green card holder. Our calculation will come out to a household size of 3, for instance. Example number 5. Let's give an example for a joint sponsor. So a joint sponsor is helping sponsor a U.S. citizen's spouse and child. A joint sponsor is married and also has 1 child. Because the original petitioner will have to fill out a separate affidavit of support for their spouse and their child, you as a joint sponsor will also have to fill out a separate affidavit for their spouse and their child. In this case, again, there will be 4 different affidavits of support, 2 from the petitioner and 2 from you as a joint sponsor. I'm not going to go over the petitioner's affidavits because they are already included in my second example. This is what it will look like. 1 under item 1, 1 under item 2, 1 under item 3 because you as a joint sponsor are married, right? So you're counting your spouse. And 1 under item 4 because you, again, as a joint sponsor have a child. So you will be counting your child on here. And then as a joint sponsor, you will also be filling out a separate affidavit, like I said, for the U.S. citizen's child that they are petitioning. So in this case, the affidavit will look very similar. 1 under item 1, this is where you're counting the child that you are helping support. 1 under item 2 because you're counting yourself. 1 under item 3 because you're counting your spouse as a joint sponsor. And 1 under item number 4 because you're counting your child as a joint sponsor. And the final example, permanent resident sponsors. So you as a green card holder sponsoring your spouse and your child. For this case, the form instructions very specifically say that as a permanent resident, you're allowed to file 1 I-130 application, 1 petition for your spouse and include your unmarried child under the age of 21 on this petition as well. So in this case, you will be filling out only 1 affidavit of support for your spouse and you will be counting the child. Don't forget to count this child as a family member on your spouse's affidavit of support in part 3. Now we'll put that on the screen right now where exactly you will be writing the child's name. You also want to make sure that you make a copy of your spouse's affidavit of support and attach it to the derivative child's immigrant application. So now let's talk about the household size calculation for this case. Under item number 1, you will be putting 2. And this is because, like I just said, you will be including your spouse as the original beneficiary on the affidavit, and as well you will be counting their underage child in part 3 as a family member. Under item 2, you will be putting 1 because you're only counting yourself. Under item 3, you will be putting 0 because you have already counted your spouse under item 1. And again, for item 4, you will also be putting 0 because you also already counted your child under item number 1. So these are some of the common examples that I personally see, some of the common examples that a lot of people run into. So I hope that this video cleared up some doubts for you. Again, if you find this content useful, please subscribe to my channel, give it a like so more people can see it so we can help more people. And I hope to see you in my next videos. Bye.